OK, let's talk in more detail, should we, about what Labour is up to at the moment in the form of the Shadow Minister for Housing and Planning and MP for Greenwich and Woolwich, I think I'm right in saying. Matthew Pennycook, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Are you turning into a party of NIMBYs?
Absolutely not. We back the builders, not the blockers when it comes to housing, and we are going to be unashamedly, if we get the privilege to serve, a party that is committed to increasing rates of house building across the country.
I see that, and I know that that's what you're saying, but then one of your fellow MPs, Rupa Hock, celebrating recently that houses were not going to be built in Ealing. She tweeted about it. Good news for a change. Glad to have played my bit in speaking 3 times against this at planning committee.
I don't know the particular circumstances about that case.
I just told you.
I think there are MPs across the country on both sides who often object to plan applications. I've done it myself, where they feel it's not good development, not in line with local plans that are agreed by local councils, local communities. So we want to see house building rates up, but we also want to see a change in the way housing is delivered across the country so that we get more high-quality, sustainable development, good rates of affordable housing. I think the problem with the system at the moment is we've got far too much speculative development going on that's of low quality, not good infrastructure, not the type of housing that communities want. And local people often don't think their kids, their grandkids have any chance of buying the homes on these developments. So we've got to change the whole system, as well as reversing the mess that the government have made by, for example, abolishing local housing targets. OK,
so how many houses a year are you going to build, and how many of those houses will be council houses?
We haven't announced a national supply target, if you like. We are absolutely committed, and this is the key difference. Well, the government, you know, has a target of 300,000 homes
that's why I'm asking you what yours
That's
is.
an entirely arbitrary figure picked out of the air. What we're very clear about is we have to have a planning system that meets objectively assessed housing need. That's what the government's rode away for. That nominal 300,000 figure remains the government's aspiration, but they've given local councils every excuse under the book not to meet their local targets. And you have to have a system that at the end of the day meets local need, because there are people out there desperate to either buy their own home or to have a secure home to rent.
And you know that because you speak to them. So how many houses do you think you need to build, having spoken to them?
We think you've got to meet objectively assessed housing need. I think that will be...
Which is what?
In the region
100 houses, but they'll all be beautiful? What? What's the figure?
No, because we need a system where you work out objectively assessed housing need on a local basis, and those numbers will, if you like, percolate up and you'll have a supply target. But there's no point, Kay...
Are you not talking to these people at the moment?
No, but there's no point.
So
I think I talked to lots of industry experts.
Exactly. So
I think
how many
there's a consensus in many ways that there is no point of having an arbitrary target plucked out of the air, which is what the government have done with the 300,000 target. But we want to get in that region. We want to get in that region. We want to get in that region and even surpass it, because to meet housing need, we need lots more houses than are being built at the moment. And what the government have done...
more than 300,000.
What the government have done in the changes they've made, concessions to Tory backbenchers, is make it easier for councils to pause, review local plans. We're seeing planning consents reducing, and all of this is going to mean in the next year, 2 years, house building rates are going to plummet. That is terrible for our economy, and that is terrible for all the people out there who, as I said, are desperate to have a secure home of their own, whether that's to buy or to rent.
OK, so more than 300,000 then is the target.
No, I didn't say more than 300,000.
You said up to and surpassing.
It may do if that's what the
you
calculation of local housing need is, and there is a way to calculate local housing need. But that's different from an arbitrary figure that the central government plucks out of the air and forces down onto local communities.
How many of these
but it does mean, let me be very clear, Kate,
Go
it does mean, as the leader of the Labour Party said this morning, and we'll say later in the speech, it does mean unwinding the mess that the government created. It does mean reimposing local house building targets. But as I said, it means we think a number of other changes to the planning system to ensure that the development that's coming forward, all of those homes, is not low quality, speculative development, but is good development that local people, by and large, should back, because it's a different proposition.
How many of new houses built should be, what percentage then should be council houses?
It doesn't work like that, I'm afraid, Kay. We will have, I think, come the point of the next election, a target on social and affordable housing. Absolutely, because the government has much more direct control over the numbers of those built. And we have been very clear, we want to see a marked increase in affordable housing, particularly genuinely affordable social rented homes. We want to see a better regulated private rented sector, and we want to see a much better offer for those who aspire to home ownership. We've got to, introduce security across the board, all tenures. But behind all of that sits getting house building numbers up. That means undoing the mess that the government have made and also fixing the flawed system that existed before those concessions, because after 13 years of piecemeal and inept tinkering with the planning system, it is failing on all fronts.
OK, talk to me about the bill that's going to go through the Commons later on today. At the end of no-fault evictions, you guys obviously support that.
We do support it.
OK, talk to me about what should happen with the new rules on antisocial behaviour. What should antisocial behaviour look like in order for people to no longer be able to stay in their homes?
If you just allow me, we very much welcome the fact that the bill's being published today. It's long overdue, as I think I heard you say at the top of the programme. Renters have been waiting 4 years for these reforms. 50,000 of them have been victims of Section 21 evictions during that period. Lots of them are facing incredibly steep rent rises. They will, I think, rightly be slightly aggrieved that it's taken this long to get here. But we welcome those proposals. But you're absolutely right. We want all of the proposals in the white paper that was released last year to be in this bill, but we want the deficiencies in those proposals to be fixed. What we can't have, whether it's via a very, very broad definition of antisocial behaviour, whether it's by allowing landlords to say they're taking back the home for their own use, only then to rent it out, or to hike rents to evict people, we can't have Section 21 reintroduced by the back door. So let's see what the detail says, let's see what the bill contains. But we will seek to tighten up those parts of it where we think renters are still in far too weak a position. The ultimate objective of this bill, and that on this we agree with the government, is to provide renters with far more rights and protections than they currently have. To, if you like, tilt the balance back.
What does antisocial behaviour look like in order for someone to be told that they have to leave their home?
Well, there is a definition as it stands in housing law. But what we're worried about, and I've had, for example, domestic violence charities contact me about this, if you have too wide a definition of antisocial behaviour, if it's minor noise nuisance that allows a landlord to evict you, that has serious implications for particularly vulnerable groups of tenants. So as I said, it's one of the areas we want to look at very, very carefully to make sure that the definition allows landlords, absolutely, grounds for possession where they've got very antisocial behaviour occurring in their homes, but not too wide that, as I said, it becomes one of many potential means of reintroducing Section 21 no-fault evictions by the back door and ejecting tenants. We've got to give tenants the protection they deserve. As I said, security across all tenures.
Let me get a word in edgeways. OK, what about migrants? Suggestions that migrants could, who are waiting to find out whether they can stay in the UK or not, instead of putting them in hotels or on ships, we could potentially move them into private sector accommodation.
We debated this actually in committee last week and we objected it. We think it's a very damaging proposal that the government have brought forward. Let's be very clear what's going on with this proposal. The minister who was on the sofa earlier wasn't. The government are in this position because they've made a mess of the asylum system. And their solution is to, via the legislation they've introduced, impose a de facto ban on asylum seekers who arrive by irregular means, and then to house them at taxpayers' expense for the foreseeable future. They are looking with these measures to exempt HMO asylum accommodation from all of the standards. Let's be clear, it's not bringing asylum seekers...
multiple occupancy.
Yeah, homes of multiple...
So for the acronym, yeah.
But it's not bringing down the standards in HMO asylum accommodation to the minimum. It is exempting them entirely.
Yeah.
And as well as the impact on asylum seekers in those substandard homes, we are particularly concerned that the government here are trampling on local discretion. These are powers that local councils, local communities use to ensure the management quality standards in HMO accommodation is met. They're being told they can't have it. And in a sense, the government are just casually sacrificing these important powers because they are reaching for every lever possible, having broken the asylum system, to deal with the backlog, to deal with the hotel crisis. So there's got to be a better way than saying standards don't apply to large sections of privately rented HMO accommodation. OK. I
can see why the leader sent you rather than coming himself. You're well across your brief. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on the programme. Much appreciated. Thank you.